The co-main event for UFC 287 this weekend is Gilbert Burns versus Jorge Masvidal. This should be a very fun fight. I think there are a little bit of stakes at it. I think maybe Gilbert Burns might be able to cut in line for a title shot, but it does seem like Bilal Muhammad might get the next one. I don't even know what's happening with that situation. It sounds like Bilal Muhammad's on the same page as the UFC right now, so maybe they match up him and Gilbert Burns, but I know Bilal Muhammad didn't want to take that fight, so maybe Bilal Muhammad versus Usman, and then what happens with Gilbert Burns, we have no idea. For Jorge Masvidal, he's looking to cut in line also, especially in front of Colby Covington, as he has a chance to beat a top 5 opponent, but obviously Colby Covington beat him in the head-to-head matchup, so I don't know how much it would really do for him. It does sound like the UFC is pretty adamant about that matchup, Colby Covington and Leon Edwards. So we'll see how this one goes. I think, again, this is a very interesting matchup. So let's get right into the breakdown. I'm basically going to break down how these guys physically match up against each other and then how I think the fight will go. So we have Gilbert Burns versus Jorge Masvidal. Gilbert Burns 21-5, Jorge Masvidal 35-16. Gilbert Burns will be 2 years younger at 36 years old. Will be 1 inch shorter. Obviously at the same weight division. Masvidal will have a 3-inch reach advantage, and Gilbert Burns will have a 1/2-inch leg reach advantage. For Gilbert Burns' last couple fights against Neil Magny, he pretty much destroyed Neil Magny, took him down to the ground and put him in an arm triangle. Before that, he fought Khamzat Chimaev about a year ago, put on an absolute war with him. A lot of people thought Gilbert Burns won. I thought Khamzat Chimaev won, but it was a very close fight. Went to war with him. I was a little worried of him fighting Neil Magny, even though Neil Magny is just Neil Magny at this point. I just can't trust the dude, that his durability would kind of be tested there, but we'll see how this fight goes. He didn't really get shots landed on him by Neil Magny, so and then he beat Stephen Wonderboy Thompson by basically just laying on him the whole fight. Jorge Masvidal's last fight was a loss to Colby Covington, 50-44. Jorge Masvidal got KO'd by Kamaru Usman and then lost a pretty dominant decision to Kamaru Usman also. So not really the best of stuff from either one of these guys. I guess I went over Wonderboy Thompson's pretty good, but performance-wise, well, I guess Gilbert Burns has put on the better performances, let's be real. Went to war with Khamzat Chimaev, the boogeyman of that division, pretty much what it was, and then just beat up Neil Magny. So he is on a 1-win streak, at least right now. So we'll see how this fight goes. I think I'm going to go with Gilbert Burns in this matchup. I was kind of contemplating before this matchup even got booked. Especially, I thought even if this fight was being booked for January instead of the Neil Magny fight, that Jorge Masvidal would have a really good chance due to how much damage Gilbert Burns has been taking, but he literally hasn't taken damage in a year. That Neil Magny fight was pretty easy for him. He really didn't take anything in that fight, so I think he's definitely recovered at this point. There's always a question. I don't know why. I just don't trust Gilbert Burns' chin for some reason after seeing that Usman fight where he pretty much got clipped and then just was sitting on his back for the rest of the fight. I just kind of underrated him at that point in all of his fights. So I'm going to go with Gilbert Burns in this matchup. I'm going to trust him here, even though I really don't want to. He does kind of struggle with straight shots. A lot of the guys from Kill Cliff or whatever the hell they call it at this point, whatever that gym is, do struggle a little bit with straight shots. You saw it with Jeff Neal and Vicente Luque, and you kind of see it again with Gilbert Burns. I do kind of worry about that. He is a very powerful guy. He can definitely clip Jorge Masvidal, but I think this fight ends up on the ground and ends by submission. Obviously, his offensive wrestling is not that good. Jorge Masvidal does have some really good defensive wrestling, so I think this will be a very interesting scenario here, whether or not Gilbert Burns will actually look for the takedown or try to commit to a takedown. His wrestling did look really good against Neil Magny, but it is Neil Magny, so we'll see how that one goes. Jorge Masvidal did really good against the wrestling of Kamaru Usman, but obviously, I think Colby Covington did a lot better. I think he's a little bit more technically sound in the wrestling department where he's able to get some trips. Kamaru Usman's more, he's going to use your body to take you down and things like that, like his physicality just to take you down. So it would be very interesting to see if Gilbert Burns can take him down. If he does take him down, I think his submission threat is going to be a little bit more dangerous than both of those other guys, Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington. Obviously, he's a very good grappler. I think he does get it done on the ground eventually in like the second or third rounds, but I do get a little worried that Gilbert Burns might not be able to get that takedown and Jorge Masvidal is just going to clip him. I feel like this fight's going to start out kind of like the Darren Till fight where they just start going at each other and just start walking forward. I think Jorge Masvidal has really nothing to lose. He sounds like he's trying to retire. So maybe he just goes at Gilbert Burns and maybe he does get clipped and KO'd. That would be very interesting. It does seem like Jorge Masvidal's durability is not necessarily going down. He has been clipped before, has been dropped, but after getting KO'd, he's getting hurt by Colby Covington, which is very interesting. Maybe Colby Covington just has some weird power or whatever, but he was getting a little hurt in that fight also. So we'll see how this one goes. He is 38 years old. The durability is kind of going down. I say that, but Gilbert Burns is 4 months away from being 37. So their durability is both kind of going down. I never really trusted the chin of Gilbert Burns too much, but I do think that he does get it done here. I do think he gets kind of outstruck on the feet. I think he does kind of throw too many hexes, and maybe Jorge Masvidal will be able to dodge some of those and land some better shots here. I think he does win on the feet. I think it will be kind of close though. Just damage-wise, I think Gilbert Burns does a little bit more damage on the feet, and Jorge Masvidal is a little bit more technically sound in that department. And maybe the straight shots kind of get at Gilbert Burns early. He looks for a takedown and doesn't get it. So I think those scenarios can definitely happen. I think Jorge Masvidal definitely has a very solid chance in this matchup, but I do see first round, I think Gilbert Burns and Jorge Masvidal kind of just trade shots. I think they kind of just go after each other. Second round, I think it's kind of the same thing, but I think towards the end of the second round, you'll see like both guys kind of tired, even though Jorge Masvidal has good cardio. I think both guys are going to be a little tired, and I think Gilbert Burns is going to be looking for a takedown. I think he gets a really good takedown, gets a trip or whatever, however way he gets him to the ground. And then we'll look directly to his side. I think he'll move, like, he is really good grappling, better than both of these guys. I think he's going to be in better positions than like a Colby Covington, because Colby Covington was looking for a lot for that neck on the side, but wasn't able to get his legs crossed over. And Jorge Masvidal was doing a really good job switching over. But Gilbert Burns is a much stronger dude. He does have like a stockier base, so he's going to be able to get a little bit more into those chokes. So like a neck crank might be possible here, maybe a arm triangle again. But again, Jorge Masvidal is really good off his back, really good with the takedown defense. So we'll see. I think this one could go to a decision, but for some reason I think I can just see Gilbert Burns submitting him. If someone were to win the fight or someone were to finish, I would edge it more to Gilbert Burns by submission. I believe Tapology, let me check here because it does look pretty split. They have Gilbert Burns 44% by submission, Jorge Masvidal by 38. I'm sorry, Gilbert Burns by 38% decision, and 12% by TKO. So a lot of guys think that he's a chance to KO Masvidal. I think it's either going to be a submission or a decision for Gilbert Burns here. Maybe a submission towards the later third round. I'm probably going to edge more to a decision in this matchup, but I do think eventually he does get him to the ground. I think he does have a very good chance to submit him. So I'll go with submission in the third round for this one. So that's what I have for this matchup. Should be pretty interesting how this one goes. I think Jorge Masvidal has a very solid chance. I don't think he retires after this fight, in all honesty. I think there's a Conor McGregor matchup out there for him. I think there's a couple other matchups that I'm sure he can make a lot of money for. I think he should really just retire from actually going after the belt, because I honestly don't want to see that anymore. But it does sound like there's some very heavy odds, though. Holy cow. Let's see. Tapology is saying minus 500 for Gilbert Burns, plus 360 for Jorge Masvidal. So let me check the odds here. Yeah, we have minus 500 and plus 350 for Masvidal. So Masvidal might be a good bet, especially, or at least for me, that I think I might put down money on, because plus 350 is kind of wild for this matchup. I don't think Gilbert Burns deserves to be a minus 500. Maybe he does, and Jorge Masvidal is just completely out of his reach. But again, the guys that he got dominated by were Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington. Like, those are pretty dominant wrestlers. And Gilbert Burns doesn't have the best offensive wrestling, but he does have some very good grappling. So we'll see how this one goes. I think Jorge Masvidal might be a little sneaky in this one, and Gilbert Burns doesn't have the best chin or anything like that either. So we'll just see how this one goes. I'm going to go third round submission for Gilbert Burns. I think Jorge Masvidal was very sneaky. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know who you guys think will win in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys next time.